Don't be an anonymous investor. Join the stock market social media platform public.com. Invest any amount of money and share with friends and new friends. Discover new opportunities such as new companies and potential business partners and useful tools for beginners, and share your experience with friends on public.com. Link in the video description gets you $5 for being a Grid Network viewer. Use the referral code GRIDnet for your free $5 to invest and start investing and networking on public.com.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Grid Live Encore. I'm Ben Schneider, joined as always by Brandon Crossland. And look who's back. Casey Campbell joins us once again after a couple of weeks away. Casey, how are you doing?
It is good to be back. Obviously, I had to take a few weeks off to do for some personal reasons, but yeah, it's good to be back. Yeah, it should be fun. We are officially now in the off season and all the craziness that was the NASCAR season. Yes, Brandon. I think I speak for both of you. I think we might need an off season a little bit. As much as we miss all the racing stuff, and I see all the tweets and all that stuff and say, I miss racing. I'm like, yeah, we need a break.
Brandon, do you feel the same way? I feel like I'm running on fumes myself here.
Well, you both work much harder than I do at this Grid Network gig. So I'm sure you guys need all the rest you can get. Most of my work goes into another realm, but I still love to be around racing. And as much as every off season, it's always a breath of fresh air. As much as we love motorsport, it's great to get these few months to get through the holidays, and it just makes Daytona that much sweeter.
Well, just to give you guys an idea of how tired I am, how much I need this offseason here, Casey texted me this afternoon when news broke with Scott Zipadelli's leaving Hattori, and he told me, I'm not surprised by this. They really struggled when they went to two trucks this year, and I saw the H and two trucks, and my mind went straight to Halmar and Halmar Friesen, and I was thinking, well, wait a second, Stuart Friesen nearly made a championship 4, and the 62 was run with a rotation of drivers, so I wouldn't say they took a major step back. And then as soon as I sent the text, I realized that he was talking about Hattori and not Halmar, and I think that's just all the proof you need that I'm running on empty here and desperately need a break. I don't understand all these fans saying, oh, we can go to 40 NASCAR Cup races, we can go to 30 Formula One Grand Prix races, and everything will be fine. And the more the merrier. I think everybody who works inside the industry, whether you're a driver, a crew member, a media analyst, a journalist on the beat writing for a publication, or whoever you are, I think if you're in this world, you understand that if anything, I think the schedules have gotten too long and we could maybe stand to condense them a little bit and have a little bit longer of an off season here. So I know you guys probably feel the same way, but I think that's an indication of how tired I am and how much I need a break. But we got a couple more shows to get through, and then we can all enjoy a couple of months away with not too much action going on. Of course, there's always some sort of racing going on all throughout the world, but none of the series that we cover on this show regularly happening this week. So I figured let's take this opportunity this week to catch up on some silly season news. What's happened in the last couple of weeks. And I think we have to start with the Indy Lights rebrand. Indy Lights is no more, at least by that name. It will be known as Indy Next going forward. Next spelled NXT without the E. The rebrand was revealed as part of the schedule announcement for the Indy Lights series in 2023. Like IndyCar, the only major schedule change is the relocation of the Detroit race from Belle Isle to downtown Detroit. So Brandon, I want to start with you. What are your thoughts on this Indy Next rebrand here?
Now, Ben, I know there's a lot of guys and women, men and women that are in a boardroom somewhere, a lot smarter than us. They get paid a lot more money than we ever will. And they sit around and they decide, okay, what's going to attract the next generation of open wheel racing fans? How are we going to do this? And so they get in there and they go, Eureka! We'll call it NXT. And we'll abbreviate it to be cool and hip. And Also, they won't take into account that this is also a WWE property name, which I'm sure they were aware of. And I'm sure WWE is probably, well, we at least we assume that they're aware of it as well. We talked about this before we went live. At least they might be aware of it. And if they wanted to claim a copyright strike, they probably would have already done so. But oh my goodness, it just doesn't look good. It looks like one of those things that they're going to look at 10 years from now when they immediately take it away and go, remember when we called it Indie NXT? Yeah, let's not do that ever again. It looks silly. It looks not creative. It's fixing something that didn't need a change. And if it did, this certainly was not it. But this is just one person's opinion, and certainly not the one making all the grand decisions. I know Casey has a lot to say about this, so it's time to turn it over to him.
Yes. So I don't know if you guys just watched. I know you did, Ben, but David Land just put out a video on YouTube saying IndyCar is stuck in 2007. It may be.
That's right.
I don't mind the name change and all that. I mean, I just talked to an Indy Next driver today. Obviously, that's in the actual process of uploading right now. Yes, I'm commentating on Grid Network while uploading a YouTube video. Actually, it just dropped. Christian Rasmussen, the driver that just switched from Andretti to HMD. Go check that out when you get done watching this show. But I don't know. It's just it just is maybe more of the list of problems maybe that's kind of surrounding the series. And I don't want to be the burden of bad news. There's a ton of good stuff going on in IndyCar right now. The Indy 500 is probably as popular as it's ever been. Drivers coming into the series, but obviously, the promotion of maybe drivers and maybe keeping them near and all that, and hey, maybe guys like Kirkwood and David Malukas and all those guys, and I know we got the Bus Bros and all that stuff, but is there a way we can get Bus Bros out, maybe more out there? Who knows? The TV show may drop in 2024, so I don't know. We'll have to see how this goes, but I will say this: the new Indy Next series is probably going to be one of its best in a while because with the amount of cars that's in there. I mean, HMD already has like 9 drivers. Andretti's got 2. They'll probably confirm 2 more. Juncos has probably got, I think, 2. Cape will bring another entry. And I think Abel might bring another entry. So we might be sitting at like 19, 20 cars right now. But as I said, obviously room for improvement, but a lot's going on in IndyCar right now. But Indy Next, I don't mind. I think the bigger change will be the Firestone tires in that series.
Yeah, well, I've heard 19 is roughly where we're going to be with the car count, which is absolutely a major improvement from the last several years. But Brandon, I think you bring up an excellent point in that my biggest frustration is this was fixing something that wasn't broken. And if anything, I think the Indy Lights name is well recognized as the next series below, or the top series on the feeder system below the main IndyCar series, if you will. And it's been that way for decades now. People recognize that, and to change it when it really didn't need to be changed, it didn't need this rebrand. And then you did have the WWE jokes coming in, and I'm sure probably if they were that uptight about the NXT branding, they probably would have said something by now. But at the same time, I mean, it's kind of the butt of a bunch of jokes there. I'm with you in that I think that this is an attempt to appeal to a younger audience potentially, or a new audience. But at the same time, I don't see it as a necessary change, especially when you consider a lot of the points that, Casey, I watched David's video as well. IndyCar does have a lot of pressing issues right now. Now, it's not to say that there aren't positive things in the works. There aren't positive things going on. Absolutely credit Roger Penske for leading IndyCar through the pandemic. He absolutely got screwed beyond belief in 2020. I think we all need to give him credit for that. And anybody blaming him for there being no fans in the Indianapolis 500 or anything like that, a lot of stuff happened that was out of his control, and he footed the bill for a lot of things and took a major loss his first year. And it was really unfortunate timing for him when he came into by the series that we ended up straight in once in a century level pandemic right away. So, that's absolutely not his fault. But at the same time, we're kind of 2 years out of that now, coming up on being 2 years out of things mostly being open again with very minimal restrictions still remaining, if any, here in most parts of this country and around the world. I think we're kind of beyond the point of pointing to that as an excuse and being a valid excuse for the series not making some progress here. And I've been hearing for the last 3 years now, what was it, 3 years last week, right, that he made this purchase of the IndyCar series in the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We want to get more ovals on the schedule. That's been something that I've constantly been hearing. And we look at these schedules now and it's a carbon copy. I mean, I know Detroit is changing locations here, but I think there was one other date that like swapped with another in the second half of the year. That's the only change. So you can talk all you want about wanting to bring more ovals to the schedule. And I understand you can't just snap your fingers and make it happen. But at the same time, I've had a few years now. I think there needs to be some sort of progress on the schedule front. I know I mentioned that on yesterday's wrap-up show when I said IndyCar had a great season. I think they did. But I think there are a lot of issues with, a lack of ovals relative to the road and street courses, with the scheduling, with marketing, with a social media presence. I mean, you look at Formula One social media presence, they're blowing IndyCar out of the water there. Now, I know they have a worldwide audience and a little bit of a bigger fan base there, but at the same time, I think IndyCar could really use a step up on that front. I just don't think that rebranding or renaming rather your number 2 series here on the ladder with Indy Lights to Indy Next, I don't think that was anywhere near the top of the priorities list, or should have been for Penske or the rest of the IndyCar series. Now, at the same time, it's not a hill I'm willing to die on in terms of, giving up covering Indy Lights or Indy Next, whatever we're going to call it going forward here on this show. Of course, we're going to continue to do that. And, it doesn't affect, my personal enjoyment of watching the series. It's just a name in one respect, but at the same time, it's a name that the series was known by for a very long time. It had brand identity that's now been lost, and the potential gains that will be made from this change, is that something that can, kind of offset that? I don't know if that's necessarily going to be the case. I hope you guys can still hear me. I'm seeing some internet warnings flash up, so hopefully we're all good there. But all that to say, Casey, I'll let you go in just a second here. Like I said, there's a lot to look at with this change here. I think that, again, it seems unnecessary to me, and that's the frustration here. Not necessarily a bad thing, but why was this our priority heading into the offseason? That's the main question that I have.
And also, this wasn't the other brand change in the complete Road to Indy.
Right. Basically,
the Road to Indy will have a complete new facelift. If you call it. The other company in this there's IndyCar, and then there's the 3 series below it, which is now called, they're rebranded the USF Pro Championships. Basically, Indy Pro 2000 was rebranded as USF Pro 2000, and as part of the changes with with the tire compounds and all that stuff, and obviously the 2 different companies promoting it. Obviously, IndyCar and Indy Next are promoted by IndyCar, and then the USF Pro Championships, which is USF Pro 2000, USF 2000, and now USF Juniors is now part of the ladder, which of course is promoted by Anderson Promotions, which is Dan Anderson and his company. So obviously the 3 series that we really don't talk about here on Grid, which we will now that I'm on here now. So it's definitely going to be interesting to, kind of see it. It will still always be the Road to Indy, the whole Road to Indy kind of thing. It's still going to provide it. And I still think it's the best ladder system to get to where you need to go. Obviously, NASCAR's ladder is completely different, with Cup, Xfinity, and trucks. And obviously, it's a way different system than IndyCar's is, where everyone's just progressing up the ladder. Obviously, you can run Xfinity, you can go from Cup to trucks, Xfinity, and all that. Yeah, that's another discussion for another day. For sure. Yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see what the fan reaction is when we actually see the Indy Next cars on track. And of course, Casey, as you mentioned, hopefully we'll be able to expand our coverage. I know this year we've really just touched on Indy Lights
on that feeder system. Now that we have you, and I know you're much more immersed in that world, hopefully we can continue to expand our coverage of the road to Indy or whatever the new rebranding is going to be going forward. Yes, going forward in 2023, we'll be looking forward to that, no doubt. Well, before we move on to ARCA and the NASCAR side of things, I do want to hit a couple of notes on the F1 side of things real quick. There was reports today that Nico Hülkenberg is set to replace Mick Schumacher at Haas, and I'll just say editorially here from my perspective, it might be a slight upgrade in the short term for Haas, but Mick Schumacher to me has kind of been somebody that has progressed year to year. What we've seen in the junior categories, I think his second year in Formula One has been no exception. So I don't know how I feel about kicking him to the curb. Now, I don't think he's going to be out of Formula One entirely for the rest of his career. I think he'll be back, particularly with, the reports of a new Audi team coming in a couple of years and expanding their role in the sport. I think there's going to be a place for Mick there in 2025 or 2026, whenever that deal comes together. But I do think it's a shame that he's being kind of kicked to the curb at Haas here for Nico Hülkenberg. That being said, I don't know that Nico Hülkenberg deserved to be out of the sport entirely either. And relegated just to the reserve roles that he's had for the last couple of years, subbing for drivers here and there when needed, kind of being the super sub, if you will, in Formula One. I don't know if Haas can get him that elusive podium, but then again, they did get a pole with Kevin Magnussen this weekend, so who knows? Anything can happen in Formula One, as the late, great Murray Walker said, it usually does. Now, more so on a series that we do cover here regularly on Encore, Logan Sargent. I know we've been tracking his super license deal as he is set to move up to Williams next season, contingent on getting that super license. He did pick up another super license point in Brazil this weekend, running the full 100 kilometers he needed in FP1 after he missed out on that in Mexico. So to update you all, he does now sit at 29 points. That should become 30 should he do the same this weekend in Abu Dhabi. Now, with a clean 2021 season in Formula 3, and as of now, a clean 2022 season in Formula 2 in regards to penalty points, Sargent could pick up 2 more points for each of those seasons and records, and could get as high as 34 points total before the 2022 Formula 2 standings are taken into consideration. And as Luke Smith of motorsports.com estimated in an article this weekend, that would allow him to fall as low as 8th in the final standings in Formula 2 to get the full 40 points needed for a super license. Now, ideally, of course, Sargent would just hold on to his P3 standing in the points right now as it stands after the weekend in Abu Dhabi, and he could just earn the full 40 points right straight away from that, which would make all the calculations I just went through largely meaningless. But it does give him some extra assurance, or insurance rather, needed if he should fall a couple of positions in the standings. But even then, I think it's unlikely that he would drop that far behind. I know there are 3 drivers deadlocked, I believe, 9 points behind Sargent or something like that in the standings. I think it's possible 1 or 2 of them might pass him if he were to have an off weekend or retire from either the sprint or the feature race. But I have a hard time seeing all of them. It would almost take a perfect storm for him to fall that low and for all of them to overtake him. So it looks like Sargent, keep your fingers crossed, US F1 fans, we might have an American driver back on the grid in 2023, but it is contingent on these results being made official. We'll know for sure in 7 days' time after we get through this weekend in Abu Dhabi. And of course, we'll have more coverage on that front on next week's Encore show as well. Hopefully Joshua Birch will be back to join us for that as well. Now, to move on to the ARCA Menards series, Casey, we'll bring you back in here. Of course, the schedule was released. Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe it was actually a couple of weekends ago, right? Or was it just this week?
Friday.
Friday. That's right. Indy Next was a couple of weekends ago. That's right.
Yes, Indy Next was a couple of weekends ago. That's when they all made that.
All sorts of news coming out. It all blends together, right? But yes, the ARCA schedule came out on Friday, and you actually had ARCA PR director Charlie Kral on your podcast and your YouTube channel this weekend. And I'll just play a short clip from him in regards to the schedule changes or lack thereof that we could have expected going into 2023.
I've been telling everybody for 6-8 weeks, there's not going to be a lot of changes between this schedule and last year's. But it's always good to get that out there. Good to get our teams in planning mode for their seasons next year. And we're off and running. 2023 starts today.
And of course, you can catch the full conversation on Casey's YouTube channel. Before we let you get into the schedule, Casey, I do want to just point out, welcome to Amber. Good to see you in the chat room again. She likes the next name change for Indy Lights. So we've got at least one fan represented from Grid here who does like that change. But Casey, I'll pull up the ARCA schedule here, as tweeted by Bob Pockras a few days ago. As you can see, there's the complete schedule for next season. What stands out to you? What do you like? What do you not like? And are there any surprises that you weren't expecting from this schedule?
Well, yeah, obviously the changes that I expected weren't any. Obviously, that's the vibe that I was getting when I asked some people down in Toledo and people that I've talked to throughout the season on this topic. There was some, obviously, as you guys know, there was some conversation about Salem being off the schedule in regards to Wi-Fi issues and maybe the track conditions. But obviously, that track is rented by Track Enterprises, which is awkwardly ran by Bob Sargent, who is Logan Sargent's father. So it's basically, I think it's a good schedule. I really, there wasn't really much change on it. The only really change is Iowa is now moved a month back. But overall, if it works, it works. These are probably some solid tracks on the schedule. I know a lot of people aren't fans of Springfield and DuQuoin or some other places on there. Really like them. And Ohio is back. I really am excited that Toledo's the championship race again. And I know that if you caught the conversation with Charlie, I know they're trying to get more events down there to make it more special of a championship weekend that we had. And it was pretty good. The relationship that I think that the series now formed with Destination Toledo, which is the lead kind of promoter of the tourism division of the city, down in the Hilton Garden Hotel, which basically was hosting the championships thing. There could be some things going on down there. Obviously, maybe some more visits to schools, like we saw with that we had at Southview High School with the metal arts class. You should have been there, Ben. It was pretty amazing. The kids were very enthusiastic because the pace car was also there, so they wanted everyone to rev the engine or something. I don't know. But yeah, cool rate. Everybody loves race cars, and obviously that brings the next generation of race fans like you and me and all that stuff. And there's a lot of things going on right now with ARCA and its schedule, and really a lot of good takeaways of it. Just some other notes. Michigan is back to its traditional Friday date. Remember, they ran the doubleheader on Saturday. I was there. It just felt rushed. I think it's I get you want to have to give the fans the bang for your buck, but I think this is more the teams saying, we just didn't. There wasn't a lot of time between the Xfinity race and the ARCA race. It was go, go, go. And it was go, go, go all day from like 9 a.m. till the ARCA race ended. There was always something going on at the track. So I get you want to get the fans involved in that, but I think it's just to give the teams their own day, practice qualifying. They don't have to worry about anything. They're the only thing there. And I think it's a good thing for the series to have that. And have Berlin back on there as well. Excited about going back there again. It's on the NASCAR off weekend where Cup, Xfinity, and trucks are all off that weekend. So it'll be fun there. We might maybe see some Cup, Xfinity, or truck guys there. Yep, the 17th. I know Elko is back on the schedule. Fun track there. Kansas is back twice. I don't mind it. Yeah, a lot of solid tracks on there. IRP was a big hit for ARCA. There's going to be a lot of promotional events going on there, and really excited that they're back in Mid Ohio again. Went down there for the first time. Should be exciting there. And if you notice, a lot of those races are partnering with the Truck Series, so they're there at the same time, including that Milwaukee Mile date. It's going to be a same day doubleheader with the Truck Series. So that's going to be it's going to be exciting there. And by the way, I have some news regarding, if you're wondering where the East and West schedules are. They might be coming next. Actually this week. So maybe in the later part of the week, I might be popping back on here to react to that. So obviously there's a lot of questions surrounding East and West of what their schedules are going to look like. We'll just have to see how it goes. And obviously now there's still a lot of things. The East and West schedules have to come out. Obviously the TV times have to come out as well. And also where the showdown races as on there. And another note, I know I got a lot of notes surrounding this, but The IRP race will also be a 4th combo race with the ARCA Menards Series East. So they'll have 4 combo races with the main ARCA series, and the West series will have 1, which of course will be that March Phoenix date. So the 4 East combo races are IRP, and then the 3 from last year, Iowa, Milwaukee, and Bristol.
Well, I'm sure there's going to be some mixed reaction from East Coast ARCA fans regarding the East series having basically half their schedule now be combo races with the main ARCA series, but we'll wait and see once that full schedule comes out. One thing I do want to ask you about, Casey, we'll pull the schedule back up here again. I know the 2-day turnaround to have 2 races in 3 days from Watkins Glen to the Illinois State Fairgrounds was hard on a lot of the ARCA teams, and a lot of the fans were questioning why there was such a quick turnaround there when the teams had to travel that far. Can you give us any sort of insight as to why that is still the case going into 2023? Is that kind of just an unavoidable clash, if you will, if we wanted to go to both Watkins Glen and the fairgrounds?
Yes, and of course that's where that's when the Illinois State Fairground. That's when the Illinois State Fair is. It's just traditionally been that weekend. This is the 3rd straight year that they've done this. Of course, 2 years ago Michigan was that race weekend. It's a long haul for teams, but it's I don't know. I don't think you can avoid that. Really didn't get a chance to ask about that, but it's it's a tough haul for the teams, but obviously I don't know. The schedule I think is more spread out. So when they have to do that, a lot of their races are towards those summer months. So that's when the teams are there. But a lot of those races are in the local area, so they don't really have to spend that much, because it's just a lot of the big teams obviously don't have the bigger budgets, and obviously the independents and they're coming from all around the country. So yeah, it's a long haul, but it's a long haul to Phoenix too. So it's there's obviously some tough spots, and trying to you might break the bank on some of the trips, but it's obviously this a lot of concerns have been brought up to ARCA, so they know what they're doing. Obviously, it's just a tough schedule, and where NASCAR has its schedule and where ARCA has its schedule and where the Illinois State Fair lands. So, I saw actually some people commenting today on Twitter, and I think Charlie responded to a few of them.
We have a couple of further questions in the chat from Amber here. Amber, we want to go to the Milwaukee Mile and Toledo. Are there any tips, and will you be there, Casey? I know you were at Toledo this year. Will you be at the Milwaukee Mile, and do you have any tips if Amber wants to attend either of those races?
That, of course, is on the fairgrounds. Obviously, maybe not the best person to ask about Wisconsin stuff. Obviously, maybe the great Dave Coleman, maybe the longtime motorsports writer for the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, maybe a better probably person to ask for that. But yeah, it's one of the tracks I've always wanted to go to with the Milwaukee Mile. It's an interesting place. Obviously, and there's obviously rumors that IndyCar could potentially go there, and who knows, maybe the Cup Series will go there. I don't know, but yeah, it's a fun place. It'll be interesting to see what that event does. Obviously, the trucks are going back there for the first time in 12 years, so definitely going to see how that works as a doubleheader. It'll probably be an FS1 race. So it'll be I believe it's the Sunday after Daytona. So obviously the trucks and Milwaukee will have its own day, and it'll probably be on the Fox family of networks. So yeah.
And another one from Amber here: can ARCA grow with fans that are wanting to enjoy short track racing and a traditional championship? Casey, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's obviously I think the championship is up. I mean, ARCA is not big enough to have a playoff or something like that, like what you see in the top 3 series. But yeah, it just depends on, they want to create a series where young kids can, learn, but they also want to create a series where, the Greg Van Elst, the Andy Jankowiaks, the Jeffrey McZinks, and all those guys that want to go and come race. Christian Rose is another one. Yeah, it's a platform for them to learn. They maybe sometimes, it's only 20 races. It's not, 23 races like the Truck Series where they travel all around the country, or Xfinity, or the top level in Cup. It's a series, I think, where a lot of people can go that want to just go out and race and race stock cars at at a level, and I think ARCA's kind of turning him back into that. And the responses that I think ARCA's been getting is that a lot of those guys, they're trying to get people to come out and race, and it looks like we're kind of starting to see it. So we might see some more of the more Greg Van Elst, more Andy Jankowiaks, more of those guys out there in racing. So it'll be quite exciting.
Well, the series is far from perfect, but it is still a place where you can see those two worlds come together. The independents that just love to race, but also some of the top teams and top manufacturers using it as a place where their young drivers can develop and learn and be ready and more prepared when they move up to the national series. So lots to look forward to in ARCA in 2023. Casey, thank you for sharing your thoughts on the schedule. And of course, whenever the East and West schedules come out, we'll definitely get your thoughts on that.
Right.
You said we could maybe expect those this week, right? Or this week or next?
Those this week. It's likely toward the end of the week, I've been told.
Sounds good. All right, well, let's bring Brandon Crossland back in here, and let's talk about some NASCAR Truck Series news. Perhaps the biggest news and the worst kept secret in the Truck Series is now official. Kyle Busch Motorsports is switching to Chevrolet. David Gilliland Racing is switching to Toyota to help fill that void. We'll talk about that in just a second, but let's stick with KBM right now. Chase Purdy will drive a number 4 on a full-time schedule, while Jack Wood will run most of the season in the number 51, which will serve as an all-star truck for a variety of drivers as well, Busch himself among them. Rev Racing will also add a Truck Series team to their program. Nick Sanchez, the defending ARCA champion, will drive a number 2 Chevrolet in alliance with the KBM team. So, Brandon, we'll go to you first. What are your expectations for both KBM and Rev next year in the Truck Series?
Looking at it from a far lens, it's very interesting to see this bow tie switch for both KBM and also this partnership with Rev Racing making their way to the Truck Series. And but looking at other teams that have changed manufacturers, usually that first year when you're in the new OEM camp, there's a lot of bugs that have to be fixed and worked out. And I expect the same kind of scenario for KBM and especially for Rev Racing being a technical alliance with them. But Kyle Busch Motorsports with Chase Purdy and Jack Wood, and then also probably going to have Kyle Busch here and there, like you mentioned. It's a pretty interesting driver lineup. Of course, not having the huge names there in the Truck Series there for KBM, but it should be interesting to watch next year. And Chevrolet is going to have another big piece to add to their puzzle.
About big names coming there. There still could be big names racing for KBM. I mean, who knows? Jimmy Johnson could get in a truck. I don't know. But yeah, I think a lot of people were surprised when they saw that, Chase Purdy and Jack Wood were going there. Obviously, there's still a lot of pieces trying to get put together and all that. Remember, Chase Purdy signed a multi-year deal with KBM. It was noted in the release. And why I say that is it's probably the best thing for him because, he's moved around to a couple teams and, GMS and, he was at GMS in 21. He was at Hattori last year. And people don't remember this, but he was completely out of racing in 2019. He didn't do anything. I mean, I think he went to college at Ole Miss. So, and then of course he only ran part-time during the COVID year for GMS in 20. So I think this is going to benefit him to have those 2 years, to have it just more consistency and all that. And then for Jack Wood, just 10 races. I just think he was rushed up too quick. And obviously circumstances that were completely out of his control. With the whole, obviously when I get the move from ARCA East to ARCA, but then you go to trucks, and obviously with the Rafael Lessard situation and all that, and he did good and got a lot of experience, and obviously he'll take what he learned from 2 years ago and last year to KBM and maybe a lighter schedule, and maybe we'll see how it goes. It's I'm not done with Jack Wood yet. I want to see what he can do, maybe with a new team and maybe some more support as well. And obviously he'll have a veteran crew chief on the box. Brian Patty is going to be heading over to KBM as well to crew chief the 51. Of course, he was the crew chief for Ricky Stenhouse Jr. in the Cup Series. And of course, that was also announced as Mike Kelly, who was a long time, who was Stenhouse's crew chief back in the Roush Nationwide days. Will be his crew chief once again in the 47 car. So Brian Patty, of course, will have maybe a lighter schedule and working with a ton of drivers. So and also Marty Lindley and KBM did part ways as well. That was, of course, announced last week. Forgot to bring that up.
Well, I know Wood and Purdy didn't necessarily have the 2022 seasons that they wanted to, so some people may see it as a step down of a driver department for KBM, especially with the loss of John Hunter Nemechek involved in the manufacturer switch here. But I do think it is worth giving them at least one season or the partial season in the case of Wood to see if the results will come. Sure. Because sometimes I think you need a little bit of a culture change to bring the best out of you. You've seen, I think the perfect example is AJ Allmendinger with Colleague Racing. You think of where he was towards the end of the JTG run, pretty much retired, only doing a handful of races with Colleague at first, and now he's going to be their full-time Cup driver again and has been in the mix for this Xfinity Series championship the last couple of years. So I think sometimes if you get into a new environment, it can bring the best out of you, and we'll see if that'll be the case for Purdy and for Wood as well. Now, in other unsurprising news, David Gilliland Racing makes their switch back to Toyota official, and the team will also undergo a rebrand as Tricon Garage. Now, Tricon will run 3 trucks full-time, Corey Heim in the number 11, Tanner Gray in the 15, Taylor Gray in the 17, except for the first 3 races, which he will miss due to NASCAR's age restriction policy. The team will also bring back the number 1 truck as a 4th entry on a part-time basis. Now, here's what team owner David Gilliland himself had to say about the rebrand from Fox Sports' Bob Pockrass.
Weird at all to pull your name off the door?
A little bit, but it's just the way everything's going, and people have had their names on the companies for a long time, and I've never felt like attached to that, and I want to build a brand. I want to build a brand to where our guys, when they go to lunch, they have a company that kind of sets itself apart, and my name has been good, and it's helped. I've built a lot of relationships over the years that have helped kind of get us where we're at. But it's time to look at where we're going, and I think Tricon and to be able to have our logo and our flags and our brand, to be able to do that, I'm excited about taking that next step. And it'll be a little bit different at first, but it's something that we've talked long and hard about and are excited about doing.
All right, Casey, we'll go to you first on this one. And same question. What do you expect from Tricon in 2023? And do you think the team switch back to Toyota will help fill the void left in the Toyota camp from KBM's switch to Chevrolet?
No, obviously they're going to, it's a big time switch to KBM from Ford to Toyota, and from David Gilliland Racing to Tricon Garage. Obviously we are seeing the creative names come up in full, and I think we're going to start to see more of that. Obviously, with the success that Trackhouse brought with these new teams coming in. But I also think that there is, I think there's going to be some learning curves as well. It's definitely a championship contending team, that is for sure. Obviously, we don't know who the crew chiefs are and all that fun stuff. But I think obviously Corey Heim is super talented. I really think that he's a championship contender, especially what we saw last year. I also think Taylor Gray is a championship contender as well. Look what he did in the ARCA Menards series, and had some solid truck starts as well. Tanner, I think I think Tanner's going to improve as well. Overall, I think it's going to take some growing pains and going to take some time, as with any new thing. There's got to be that transition period in it, but obviously that's a championship contending team. And I think Tricon Garage is going to prove a lot of people. They're going to make some noise, and they're going to be big championship contenders. I actually have one of their trucks in the championship 4 heading into this year. And obviously I got to see how the whole picture straightens out. And obviously there's a ton of things that still have to be settled. I think we're going to see a lot of that during the banquet, after the banquet. But there's still a lot of news surrounding the truck series, but I think Tricon Garage is going to be a team to beat in 2023.
Well, let's not forget the last time a team ran Toyotas was 2019, or in 2019 rather. You had Tyler Ankrum in that number 17 truck. Yep. He also missed the first 3 races due to the age restriction. he ended up winning a race at Kentucky, still got himself into the playoffs. So I absolutely think
of course.
there's a path
And of
forward.
course, he'll probably get a waiver from NASCAR and all
No
that.
doubt.
It's like, it's just where your birthday falls on the calendar.
No doubt. Go ahead, Brandon.
You might end up catching me calling them Tricon Garage at some points in the season next year. It really brings off the European vibe of maybe a club motorsport group or something. When this first came out, the whole bus was the next thing we're going to see is a team with Autosport at the end in NASCAR or something like that. But yeah, this is really a solid lineup of guys for Tricon, and of course with Taylor Gray having those 3 races he'll miss, but still solid lineup there. Corey Heim, Tanner Gray, awesome drivers. It's really going to be hard, in my opinion, to match KBM's presence as far as a Toyota manufacturer. And I don't know if they'll be doing that in the first year per se, but they have a really strong chance, of course, making a great championship run with 1 or maybe even 2 of their drivers. And it's going to be probably a nice change of pace for sure. And you can tell the optimism there from Mr. Gilliland there from the Tricon HQ.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think I'm really excited to see what Corey Heim can do. I think he's done very, very well in his young career so far with Toyota and with Venturini and the limited starts he got with KBM this past season. I think Tricon Garage is definitely going to be a championship contender with, like you said, Brandon, 1, maybe even 2 of their trucks in 2023. Now, Casey, I know there's a couple other pieces of silly season news you wanted to hit. Of course, we brought up Daniel Dye, who ran in ARCA last year. He'll be moving up to the trucks with GMS. And of course, you let me know very kindly about the Scott Zipadelli news today as well. What are your thoughts on some of the other pieces that are still falling into place for 2023 in the truck series?
Yeah, I think Daniel Dye is obviously going to be a contender at GMS. And obviously, I don't think GMS is done. It's obviously going to be a lot of contending things there. And obviously, I think GMS may go to more trucks. I know they've said that, but who knows what possibly could go down. Obviously, it's a big question of where, many people have talked. There could be a landing spot for where Raja Karuf may end up next year. Obviously, I know Raj and I have talked a lot throughout the last few weeks. And of course, he came on during Phoenix week and said he really doesn't have anything concrete. Obviously, that was before the KBM announcement as well. But also, I think Nick Sanchez is going to prove a lot of people wrong as well with Rev Racing. I think that Rev is going to be a championship contender. Obviously, that's going to be a KBM prepared truck. So we'll have to see how that team ends up. I'm really interested to see what Nick Sanchez can do in the truck series. In regards to Scott Zipadelli in the news today, that's a kind of a bit of a surprise, but I'm not surprised as well. Scott deserves a lot of credit for getting Hattori to where they are, and obviously, they're a championship winning organization. Of course, they won the championship with Brett Moffitt in 2018. So we'll have to see where Scott ends up. It'll be interesting to see what Hattori ends up doing for 2023. They haven't really confirmed what their plans are for next year. Obviously, Chase Purdy is not going to be not with them, and obviously we now know where he will be. Of course, he'll be a KBM for the next few years. But Hattori has not released its 2023 plans yet, so obviously we'll keep in touch on that. And obviously, I've been keeping in touch on all my Google Docs where are my charts and all that, and you guys know and you guys follow it and all that. So I've been keeping track of everything. So stay tuned all off season to my Twitter account as well as Grid Network. So we'll get you caught up throughout all the off season. I don't know if there'll be I'm not sure if there'll be much news this week. We're really heading into Thanksgiving next week. I can't believe it's already Thanksgiving next week. Jeez. But it's definitely we're going to see more news. Really, I think after the NASCAR award ceremony and really after the new year.
Yeah. What is Christmas 41 days away now? If I did the math quickly in my head,
So,
that's wild.
Sounds right.
Yeah.
Crazy to think about that. Well, there is certainly still a lot that needs to fall into place. And of course, as Casey mentioned, we'll keep you all updated, whether it's on this show or on social media. Just follow Grid Ranking and follow Casey as well, because I know he's going to be keeping tabs on a lot of that, as he always does. Now, the biggest news in the Xfinity Series has to be Parker Kligerman. A great deal for him. He'll run his first full-time season in nearly a decade as he returns to the Xfinity Series to drive a number 48 for Big Machine Racing. and that Chevrolet full-time in 2023. Kligerman finished 6th from a team at Talladega this fall and is also a 3-time winner in the Truck Series, including a win at Mid-Ohio with Henderson Motorsports just this past year. So, Brandon, when you consider Tyler Reddick won a race in that car this past season, you look at what Parker Kligerman's done, particularly in the Truck Series the last several years. Is Kligerman a legitimate 2023 championship contender in your mind?
I think he's a race winner. Now, a championship contender, I'm not so sure. But, man, I'm just still over the moon for this opportunity for Parker Kligerman. And really just I think everyone can be glad that he's getting another full-time chance here in that machine with number 23. But the Mid-Ohio win last year was – this year was really fun. But do I think he's a championship contender? I don't know. It's probably too soon to say that. I don't think that team is a championship contender, no matter who you put in the car. But I do think they are capable of more than one race win, and so it's still a really exciting time for Parker Kligerman going into 2023.
Oh, hi. So I actually, funny enough, I did talk to Big Machine today. So we're obviously we're working on a Parker Kligerman interview on my channel, so stay tuned for that. Yeah, obviously this is a huge opportunity for him. I do believe he is a championship contender because, I think Chevrolet has got a lot to prove, especially after what happened last year. I think that team is really it is a very underrated team. That team can win no matter who's in the car. And obviously, I think Parker's got a lot of talent. I think it's not been shown yet. So I think he can get there. Obviously, there's still a lot. It's still a long season. We really don't know who's going to be in a lot of those cars. We have a pretty good idea of who's going to be some of the title threats in the Xfinity Series heading into 2023. But you also have a lot of other things that are going to be factors into the season. It's a long season. There's got to be something there. And that team had a lot of drivers last year. From Jay Buford to Parker Kligerman to Nick Sanchez and a bunch of Cup drivers as well as Kaz Gralla too. So it'll be interesting to see how they get used to one driver in there. And plus, that car is fully funded. So, Scott Borchetta and Big Machine Records, obviously, and Big Machine Vodka and all those things. It provides a good opportunity, so they don't have to worry about that. They could just pick who they want in their cars. And obviously, this was a good pick. Plus, he's going to run some truck races for Henderson Motorsports in the 75. And then, of course, he'll still be on pit road for NBC doing those Cup races on Sunday. So that's going to be good. Parker's going to be a busy man in 2023. So he'll be good. He's been in the shop a lot. Actually, I just spoke with, as I said, I just actually spoke with a Big Machine rep today. Obviously, as you know, Big Machine and I work a lot together on a lot of things. So working on a Parker Kligerman interview. Stay tuned on that.
I did like this tweet from Tony DeZino here, which I just pulled up real quick. Odds the 2023 Xfinity champion is in this photo here. And speaking of NBC, you see Parker interviewing Justin Allgaier right after the Phoenix race ended. Who knows? I think, Casey, like you mentioned, certainly don't sleep on this team here. They are fully funded and they've had some strong runs. Brandon, like you said, I think race win is really, kind of a no-doubter. I think we're going to see that at some point from Parker this year. Or this coming year rather, but championship might be a little bit of a stretch, but of course, if he wins, he gets into the playoffs, and sometimes that's all you need. You go on a nice little run. Who knows what can happen if you make the championship four.
Yeah, what am I saying? Race wins are championships nowadays, so sure, he's got a shot.
Yeah, well, in the minds of a lot of people, I still go back to that appearance that Denny Hamlin just had on Danica's podcast, where he was talking about, one race determines the champion. I've got, however many race wins, not having a championship doesn't really bother me. But that's just where we are. That's the system that we have now. And who knows, maybe it leads to a championship for Big Machine and Parker next year or anybody else in the Xfinity Series. We'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah. Points championship.
Yeah. I don't know.
At least I still have a points championship in Indy next. Excuse me, Indy NXT. Sorry.
That's true.
Yeah. It's pronounced Indy next. That's actually
Is it? Okay.
Yes, it's actually pronounced Indy.
I really want to call it Indy NXT though.
You
Just
can
like
call it that.
Tricon Garage.
Tricon Garage.
Tricon Garage. Go to the Tricon Garage.
Yeah. What are you talking about, Casey? Who says there can't be a playoff system in ARCA? We're going to have 4 full-time drivers next year, surely, right?
That won't happen.
Where's the Twitter account that shows me IndyCar but in a playoff format?
I don't know about that. Maybe we should stop here and not give them any ideas.
Yeah, Twitter. And who knows where Twitter might be in a month.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Let's not even go there.
Let's
not get into that discussion. We could be here for another hour just talking about that. Well, guys, I want to open the floor to you. I know we didn't have any races this weekend that we normally cover. There was an F1 race, and Joe kind of handled the World Rally Championship for us. Do you guys have a one shining moment from the Brazilian or Sao Paulo Grand Prix, I guess I should say, or is there any news that you want to highlight? What do you have any one shining moments, or should we just close the show out this week?
I mean, I like Brazil. I like permanent road courses, and it delivered as that. So
yeah.
Also, it was 75 degrees most of the time there, and qualifying was very, very cloudy and dim. So that's about all I took there from it.
Yeah. Also, the start times were released this week too. So 21 out of 36 Cup races will be on either Big Fox or Big NBC. Also, the North Wilkesboro Truck Race will be on Big Fox. So,
but not the All-Star race.
That remains to be seen. You never know what could change. I mean, who knows? I mean, the LA Clash was supposed to be on FS1 last year, so
that is true. That is a good point.
It ended up on Fox. So if the programming all works out, who knows? If Fox can put some Sunday night, I don't know. They could put a baseball game there. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if the Simpsons or Family Guy are still. They may have new episodes at that time or something like that, or if it's It just depends on where the networks are at with all that stuff. But overall, I think most net races on cable since 2009. And I saw this when I read the NBC press release. More races on NBC since 2006. Of course, that was the last year of the prior contract that they had before they signed the one that started in 15.
I guess the Clash was going to be on FS1, and then Pitbull was like, "What do you mean I'm going to be on FS1? Put me on Fox."
Yeah.
For the halftime show.
Yeah, it's going to be a big few weeks for Fox, because they got the NFC Championship game, they got the LA Clash, they have the Super Bowl this year, and they have
a Fox Super Bowl. Oh.
Hey, the NFL and Fox actually does pretty good stuff. So,
yeah.
I will give him that.
You get Terry Bradshaw.
So
hearing Joe Buck's voice though. That's
Joe Buck.
I'm getting used to.
Actually, the World Series. Actually, Joe Davis did pretty good in the World with the World Series with the Astros.
He did.
By the way, sorry about that.
Yeah. Well, I'm. Hey, listen. Before we close the show, unequivocally, congratulations to Dusty Baker. That is a long time coming for him, and that is absolutely well deserved. Great to see. Great things happening. Great people on that front. And, I know there are some Houston Astros players that are still there from the scandal. So maybe less happy for them than I am the rest of the team of the city of Houston and Dusty Baker, of course. But no, they were far and away the better team. I'm impressed the Phillies pushed it to 6 games. It was a magical run. Just didn't quite have enough to get over the final hump there at the end. But great World Series. And we'll look forward to that in 2023, as we will, of course, all the wonderful racing that we cover on our shows here at Grid. But like you said at the start of the show, I think we need a break at the same time. So we'll enjoy that and then come back stronger next year.
Yeah, I think I'm going to try to be at 5 races next year. So maybe 6. Obviously, I've heard some rumblings about where the East Series could go. So might add some more races there. Might go to the Detroit race for IndyCar. I don't know. Definitely maybe the 4 that I went to last year. So obviously, Grid Network will be at more races.
Keep me updated on Pocono if you decide to go out there. I've never made the trip up, and I might just have to do that, especially if you're going to be there, so we can meet in person. But of course, that's all still to be determined. We'll just have to wait and see there.
We'll do.
All right. Well, that is going to do it for tonight's episode of Grid Live Encore. Thank you all so much for watching. Make sure you subscribe to the Grid Network right here on YouTube if you're not already. Be sure to follow us on all our social media platforms as well: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitch, LinkedIn, anywhere you can find us. Be sure you're following us. If you really liked what you saw tonight, You can take 5 minutes after our show to invest in Grid Network through our Patreon, help keep us on the air throughout 2022, help send us to more races in 2023, help send Casey to Detroit, help send me back out to Portland and Sonoma, where I can join Joe and Last Card Info's Brock Beard like I did this year. Your support means the world to us. It helps us do those kinds of things. And a special thank you, as always, to Colin, Deshelle, Mark, and Robin, who have continued to support us through our Patreon. If you'd rather make a one-time donation, you can do that as well through Buy Me a Coffee. Any amount helps us continue to grow this motorsports media outlet here at Grid Network. Finally, visit our sponsor, Public.com, a stock market social media home. The referral code you see on the screen there and in the description box below, GRIDnet, will give you $5 to invest. Public.com allows you to connect with your friends, make new friends, and use tools to learn how to invest in the stock market. Now, as always, on Wednesday, Kobe will bring you Grid Tonight with Joshua Birch, Kobe Lambeth, that is. Joe Samniego will host the Women in Motorsports program on Friday with Daniel Zeri. And, of course, you can stay tuned for more Grid Live coverage all throughout the coming weekend as we wrap up the F1 season in Abu Dhabi and keep a close eye on Logan Sargent in his quest for a super license. Also, stay tuned. We might have something else in the works for you all on Friday. Keep an eye out for that. Still determining what's going to happen there. But in the meantime, Brandon, Casey, do you have any final thoughts before we sign off tonight's show?
I would like to ask all of you to subscribe to my YouTube channel. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers, just like Grid Network. Yeah.
There you go.
Well, Brandon, I know you have a channel, right? I know you haven't posted anything there in a while.
It's defunct. It is defunct.
Yeah.
It's not been active in a while, so don't go there. Just follow me on Twitter.
Sounds good. All right. Well, for Brandon Crossland and Casey Campbell, I'm Ben Schneider. Thank you all so much for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your week. We'll see you next time right here on Grid Network.
Don't be an anonymous investor. Join the stock market social media platform, Public.com. Invest any amount of money and share with friends and new friends. Discover new opportunities, such as new companies and potential business partners, and useful tools for beginners, and share your experience with friends on Public.com. Link in the video description gets you $5 for being a Grid Network viewer. Use the referral code GRIDnet for your free $5 to invest and start investing and networking on Public.com.